Very low and here count. I will just do a quick introduction and we'll get the candidates out here. They're going to flip a coin to see who gets to speak first, and then they'll alternate their answers. I'm Kristen Hansen. I'm the founder and president of Sky Waukesha County. I founded Blue Sky in 2019 because so many people said to me, I'm not going to vote in the spring elections because I don't know who any of these candidates are. So I started by myself just researching all of the candidates in Waukesha County and posting lists of who I thought seemed better. That blossomed into an entire organization that now does the candidate list, the endorsement list, recommendations, paid ads, direct mail, and events like this, along with member events about issues. So I'm delighted to welcome you here. This is the first time we've ever done a forum in person, and it looks great. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. We are doing this because it's the only primary that will be on your ballot except for state treasurer. So when y'all get your ballots in the mail, starting anytime now, if you start early voting at the end of July, if you wait until Election Day on August 11th, 2 elections. It'll be this one if you live in the 13th district, and there'll be state treasurer will be a primary.
And governor.
And governor. Okay, yeah, and governor. Don't forget that. I will say this, and I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but it's true. It is very likely that whoever wins the primary for the 13th district will win in November. This is a complicated list. Please make sure you tell everyone that if they want a say in this, this is their chance to vote in August for this. Just to be clear too, this is the seat that is currently filled by Robin Vining. Is Robin still here?
Woo!
Hey, and she is up in the Senate, so you will see her on the November ballot for that Senate race. That's why this is an open seat. So if I could have David Sanchez and Amy Zimmerman come up, please. I'm going to hand this over to Tom Palzowitz, who has run for office himself before and understands what it's like to be asked tough questions. We've got 8 questions that we prepared based on questions that were submitted by Blue Sky Waukesha members. So I did not sit around and make these up myself. They all came from members. And then I'm going to pull 2 questions out of the basket that you all saw when you came in downstairs, and we'll end with those 2 questions. Any questions from you guys?
Made it clear.
All right. Yeah.
All right, let's give a round of applause for Kristen. Ceremonial coin flip. So Kevin, our timekeeper, is going to do a coin flip. Amy, if you want to call it in the air, we'll see who gets to go first. So
Okay.
You can be strategic, you can be whatever you want to be. So all right, so call it in the air. Ready? Flip.
Heads.
Heads is the call. It is tails.
Okay.
All right, so David, you get to go first.
Excellent.
So you have 4 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience. You can
I'll
say
wait until
whatever it is you want.
wait until Kevin gets back. I know he's our timer.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You ready? Okay. Well, thank you so much again to Kristen and Nisha and Tom and our hosts here at the Celtic Center, and for all of you for coming out. My name is David Sanchez, and I am running for the Wisconsin State Assembly because we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to win a Democratic trifecta this November. It's not happened in nearly 20 years. Thanks to newly redrawn maps, we have that opportunity. And if we do win, we will have a short window of time in which to accomplish many things, in which to pass legislation that will address the biggest issues that Wauwatosa, Elm Grove, and Brookfield are facing today, our affordability crisis, as well as set Wisconsin up for decades to come. I'm an attorney, and I have formerly worked in Wisconsin state government, and I feel ready to hit the ground running in order to capitalize on the opportunity that we may have next year. A little bit about my bio, my background. I originally grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, raised by 2 immigrant parents who instilled in me the value that you always seek an opportunity to give back to your community. And that's been kind of a through line that has run throughout my life. When I was in high school, I started a nonprofit organization that connected low-income and at-risk high school students with part-time job opportunities, got national attention. When I went off to college at Vanderbilt University, where I received a full ride to study political science and where my interest in government initially grew, I volunteered extensively in local high schools and taught classes there. When I graduated, I went to go work for Google out in California and joined Google's government team where I led the public health sector. Google has partnerships with the CDC and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, all the state and federal public health agencies, and my job was to help these agencies address the biggest public health issues of our times, like the opioid epidemic and the rise of teen vaping. And I loved that job, although I got a little disgruntled with where tech was heading, and I wanted to be closer to the government work, and so I decided to go to law school. I was fortunate to be accepted to Harvard Law School, so I flipped over to the East Coast, and there is where I focused my efforts on learning about state and local government and how policy is passed, how it's created, how it is, how coalitions are built. And I was fortunate after graduating to have an opportunity, my wife and I, who's also from Racine, to come back to Wisconsin in order to clerk on the Wisconsin Supreme Court for Justice Rebecca Dallett. In that role for several years, my job was to review everything that came out of the state legislature, to understand how the bills were drafted and where the court would come down on them if they were to rule. After the clerkship, a friend of mine who's in the legislature and whose job it is to recruit candidates for the assembly reached out and said, I think you should run for the state assembly. The catch is it's in a different district, you'd have to move. Now, we specifically chose Wauwatosa to move to when we moved back to Wisconsin because we fell in love with the walkability and the neighborhood feel and the great small businesses. We're just up the street on 72nd and North Avenue. So that was a non-starter for us. But it planted this seed that the skill sets that I've developed and the experiences that I've had over the course of my career, that these would be valuable skills to add to the Democratic caucus in the Wisconsin State Assembly. And so I ended up going to work for Foley & Lardner, a national law firm here in Milwaukee that is headquartered here in Milwaukee. And my focus area has been on renewable energy projects here in Wisconsin and nationally, helping to transition us to a cleaner grid. When Robin announced that she was running and when we had this opportunity for the Democratic trifecta coming up, I thought that it was an opportunity to play a critical role and really capitalize on the opportunity that we have if we get this Democratic trifecta. So thank you all for being here. I'm looking forward to a substantive policy discussion tonight.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Amy Zimmerman. I am a mom. I am a professional project manager, the co-owner of a local independent small business, and a community leader here. I'm running for the Wisconsin Assembly to represent you, because when I talk with our neighbors, our friends, and my kids, classmates, parents, all those other parents at school, I know that we have some really big issues facing Wisconsin. Last year, when the governor passed the most recent budget, I was extremely frustrated, primarily by the amount of surplus that was left on the table uninvested in our communities. And if we had fully funded public schools, and we had no needs across the state for affordable health care, affordable child care, and elder care, frankly, that wouldn't be a problem. It would be fine to have that surplus. But we have real, tangible needs in our communities that people are dealing with day in and day out. And for our state government to not invest the funds that they have available is irresponsible. Now, these terms have been set by the Republican legislature. And like David said, we do have a remarkable opportunity this fall to elect a Democratic trifecta. And with that trifecta, I agree that we have a very small window of time in which to make substantive change and improve people's lives. Because if we do not hit the ground running and get working right away on legislation that can get passed by both chambers and signed into law and improving people's lives, we will not get an extension of this governing trifecta to do more good. So it's really of the utmost importance that we hit the ground running in January. And in my opinion, that job has already started now. I've been talking with constituents, with other assembly members, and with numerous other elected officials from our county governments, our school boards, our cities, to understand what it is that they're looking for out of our state representatives. We don't have time to waste on this. And I am so thankful for all of you here tonight, thank you, and my husband at home who's not here, he's watching our kids. But I am thankful for my family's support as I look at turning what's been a hobby for the last 12 years into my full-time job. Because I believe that you all deserve to have a full-time, dedicated representative in the Assembly. And it's really through that partnership and that building of coalition that we can make real change. So my professional career has been in building teams, taking groups of disparate individuals and turning them into high-performing teams that coalesce around a common goal and deliver on a shared vision. And it's that skill set that's going to be essential in the Assembly. It's also that skill set that has developed our campaign to be where we are right now. It's been such a joy getting to know everybody across our district and learning more about the issues that are most important to you. And I look forward to discussing those more here tonight. Thank you.
All right, now that we've heard from each candidate, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the question period. I have 8 questions already prepared that came from the Blue Sky group. And then there's 2 more that Kristen's going to pull from the audience. So let's start with the first one. So Amy, I'll let you go first on this one. This is involving schools. So it's a 2-part question. What is your plan to adequately fund our public school classrooms and eliminate costly local referendums? And also, how would you hold private voucher schools accountable and level the playing field?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. All right, so when we talk about fully funding our public schools, I hear a lot of other candidates and elected officials talk about turning back Act 10, responsibly sunsetting our voucher program, and I agree with both of those. I also agree that we need to key our school funding to inflation to ensure that schools can continue to keep up with the costs they're incurring. Those costs are the investment in our future. So whether you're here representing your community from Brookfield, Elm Grove, or Wauwatosa, both of our school districts are gems in the state of Wisconsin. People move specifically here to send their kids to our public schools, which is amazing. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. I went to the same high school that my dad went to for that exact same reason. I went to public schools, K through 12. And they were a fundamental part of my upbringing. So when I think about how we're going to fund those here in Wisconsin, I think about those maybe common levers that we need to pull. I also think about how we need to evaluate the unpaid labor and wage theft that's currently happening in our schools. So be that teachers, other educational staff, non-educational faculty who are using their own personal time or are given inadequate prep time. That needs to be quantified and evaluated for additional staffing. Now, how we solve that additional staffing, I would look at a portfolio approach. Some of those levers to pull are going to include reinstating Wisconsin's estate tax and potentially increasing the upper corporate tax rate that we have statewide as well. Thank you.
David, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Could you?
Yes. So what is your plan to adequately fund our public school classrooms and eliminate costly local referendums? Second part, how would you hold private voucher schools accountable and level the playing field?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with Amy. Our schools are the foundation of our communities. It's why people move here, why people stay here, why I chose to move here. I think when it comes to school funding, a couple of things that we need to talk about. First is returning the state to the 2/3 funding commitment, where the state covers 2/3 the cost of public schools, ensuring that the local property taxes are only supplementing that with a third of the local cost. The second would be increasing the special education reimbursement rate. So for those who aren't familiar, special education services are required to be provided. It's a fantastic thing, fantastic programs. Every dollar that Wauwatosa or Elmbrook School District puts in towards those services, which again are legally required by the state, they only get about 35% back in terms of reimbursement from the state. It's supposed to be about 45%, but for reasons we won't get into, the law was written, it's actually about 35%. That means that money that's in their general fund in the school districts then has to leave the general fund and remove opportunities from our local schools in order to fill the gap. And our property taxes go up in order to fill that gap. So I think that increasing that percentage, the conversations I've had with school board members and with superintendents around our district, that percentage is anywhere from 60 to 90%. Whatever it is, we need to do a drastic increase in the special education reimbursement. On the voucher school program, I think that what we need to start with is an understanding of where our money's going right now. Just last week, I submitted a public comment to the Wauwatosa Common Council, which is considering a line item change in our tax bill that would identify the amount of money that is going from your taxes directly to private school vouchers. I think that is the first step, is understanding where this money is going. I would agree with Amy that I support an initial freeze on the expansion of that program and a responsible sunsetting of it.
Excellent. All right, so second question, David, right back to you on this one. This involves data centers, which is a hot topic in the news, obviously. What's your plan concerning data centers?
Love it. Just data center plan. Okay, so let's talk data centers. I used to work for Google. I know how these tech companies think. We need a statewide regulatory approach to data centers. These should not be happening one-off with these small local municipalities that are, frankly, it's not even David versus Goliath. I'd take those odds over the small municipalities against the big tech companies that are behind these data centers. So we need a statewide regulatory approach. A couple of things that I would include in that approach. First, no Wisconsinite should be paying a single dime to subsidize the cost of the energy requirements that these data centers need. They need immense amount of energies. Frankly, our We Energies is expected to double its demand because of data centers in the next 5 years. So it took 170 years to build up our current demand. It's going to double in the next 5 years. That means rates are going to go up. The data centers should be paying, the companies behind them should be paying for all of the infrastructure and all of the energy needs that they have. The second thing would be ensuring that we are having regular, consistent, and intensive water testing to ensure that the data centers that are going up are not affecting our water table, which is one of our most critical resources. The third thing would be, I would want these companies, which again have more money than we can imagine, to post collateral for the data center projects that they put up. We don't know, and frankly, I don't think they know, whether these data centers will be around in 5, 10, 15 years. And we don't want to be stuck with tens of thousands of acres of AI data center buildings that are no longer useful, and we're left holding the bag. We need these companies to put up the collateral in order to fund the rehabilitation of those projects once they are no longer useful.
Amy, same question.
Yeah, thank you. So I've also spent much of my career working on the equipment inside of data centers. So your servers, your networking equipment, all of that. When we talk about the data center problems that we see today, most of these pertain to the hyperscale or AI data centers, which are a completely different animal than your traditional corporate data center. The one that we're using right now to live stream, or the one that's serving you up your email when you have Gmail or whatever other email carrier there is on your phone. So differentiating between those, I think, is valuable, because where a lot of people come to the table for a data center conversation and say, well, we're already using them, they can't be that bad. Yeah, we're using the little ones. We're talking about hyperscale data centers that are leaps and bounds. They are exponentially larger than what we currently have today. So I agree with David on some of his key points. I'd also add that while we do not yet have a statewide regulatory framework, and because we do not have that right now, we do need a moratorium on hyperscale data center construction statewide until that regulatory framework is in place and it can be backed up with enforcement and accountability measures. I do think that it's wise that we have collateral in reserve from some of these major developers and owners of these hyperscale centers. But I think that what we've seen in terms of the energy consumption forecasts also highlights a shortcoming of the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission is 3 individuals who serve as judge and jury for any new or modifications to utility billing rates statewide. They're appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. And in my opinion, we also need to pursue a restructuring of the PSC so that it better reflects our interests.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so Amy, back to you on this one. Something near and dear to my heart, being on the exchange myself. So healthcare, medical debt is a problem facing millions of Americans, people who are losing insurance because of cuts to the Affordable Care Act. What do you think the next step should be in eliminating healthcare debt and ensuring healthcare for all?
All right. So step 1, we have to get something in place to expand access to affordable health insurance for more Wisconsinites. That can be either the Badger Care public option or expanding a public option to allow individuals and small businesses to buy into the state insurance plan that state employees have access to. As the spouse to a small business owner, this is something we've navigated quite a bit as well. And what we've done is implemented a health reimbursement account for our small business employees. But they represent 6 of approximately 2 million employees in Wisconsin who work for small businesses and do not have access, in most cases, to subsidized health insurance. So health insurance to me is the first step. And we've got a couple of options on the table. I think they're both adequate. Looking at controlling costs long-term, we need to put measures in place to restrict private equity in our healthcare system. This is something that I've heard from doctors and other medical professionals in our district who are very concerned by what they've seen happening in other states and how private equity will come in, and we've seen this, across the board in other industries, gut the quality of services provided and leave the business when it's no longer providing profit. That's not sustainable, and it has a bad standard of care. I would suggest that we look at implementing a model similar to Oregon's regarding the corporate practice of medicine to ensure that medical professionals remain in control of clinical decision-making.
Thank you. David, same question. Medical debt is a problem facing millions of Americans, and people are losing insurance because of the cuts to the Affordable Care Act. What do you think the next step should be in eliminating healthcare debt and ensuring healthcare for all?
Yeah. Just a couple of months ago, my 3-year-old daughter developed symptoms of croup, trouble breathing, and so we took her to the emergency room. And sometimes what happens with croup, the symptoms sort of subside on the way to the emergency room. But they ran her vitals and gave her a popsicle to sit still. And then a month later, we get a bill for $700, and insurance doesn't cover a cent of it because we haven't hit our $4,000 deductible. And if that story sounds familiar to you, you understand that our healthcare system is broken. Now we could have an entire forum dedicated to healthcare reform, and maybe we should do that. Kristen, signing you up. But here's a couple of things just to talk through ways in which we can lower the cost of healthcare and ensure that people are not going into debt. So number 1 is expanding Medicaid expansion, something we should have done 12 years ago. It would have been a better deal for us then. It's still the right decision. We have Scott Walker to thank for not doing that 12 years ago, but that's number 1. Number two, I agree with Amy. I like Kelda Roy's plan to open the state the state employee health insurance program up to the public. That was the health insurance that I benefited from when I was a state employee. It's fantastic. It would allow individuals, companies, unions to buy in. Simple math here is the bigger the pool, the more state power, more bargaining power the state has. Those costs are going to be lower. I would also, I think as Sarah Rodriguez has proposed, kind of collectively bargaining together with other states in the region to buy prescription drugs, driving down the cost of prescription drugs. And then the last thing that I would say is, there's something like, I think it's like 80% of the cost of procedure. I'm going to get these data points wrong, but the point is to cap the cost of the most common procedures. Let me see, my time is up. Oh.
30.
30, okay.
When I'm putting the fist up, you got 10 seconds. When I go 5, you got 5.
Got
When
it.
you get the pink paddle, you're done.
Thank you. Maybe
You still got 5 seconds.
10 more seconds.
Yeah. So the last two things, capping the cost of the most common procedures and cracking down on claim denial, especially those claim denial programs that are now starting to use AI in order to deny claims wholesale across the board.
Thank you. David, right back to you with question number 4. This involves your experiences. So what priority issues inspired you to run for office? And what experience do you have that sets you apart?
Yeah. I spoke about this a little bit in my introduction. I think that the experience that sets me apart is that I have a deep understanding of the law and the legislative process, especially here in Wisconsin. I spent several years when I was clerking at the state Supreme Court understanding how bills are written and what comes out of the state government and how the court system will understand it. That's important for two reasons. The first is, if we get this Democratic trifecta and we want to solve these big issues, we want to pass major policy that sets Wisconsin up for the next couple of decades, it doesn't mean anything if those bills end up getting caught up in the court system for the next 5 or 10 years. The trouble with these kinds of races is you're running in your district and you get to know your district really well, but you're running to join a team of people, hopefully a 51-person or more Democratic caucus in the state assembly. You have to think about what role are you going to be able to play on that team, just like any team, basketball, baseball. You can't have too many shortstops and not a first baseman. You need to be thinking about what role you're going to play. There are surprisingly few lawyers in the Democratic caucus. Not any that I'm aware of that have clerked on courts or specifically Wisconsin courts. So I feel that I can play a role that is a value add, a unique value add to the Democratic caucus, and having that understanding of how Madison works and how the legislative process works will allow me to hit the ground running as soon as we get that trifecta.
Thank you. Amy, same question, experience. What priority issues inspired you to run for office, and what experience do you have that sets you apart?
Thank you. The priority issues that are most important to me are fully funding our public schools. Stop. I would add to that too, affordable health care, elder care, and child care, things that affect people's day-to-day lives. I agree with David that joining a team is a big commitment, and it requires a level of effort, dedication, and availability to meet the need. I don't anticipate, as a freshman, to be in the position of setting the caucus's agenda. I think that's frankly unrealistic. However, I do have a deep understanding of our community and of what it takes to build coalitions within teams. As I said before, I've managed many project teams over the course of my career. They include lawyers, often, and technical experts, and construction crews. And at the end of the project, we have a celebratory lunch, and then we move on to new projects, and I do the same whole thing all over again. So when it comes to building a coalition and coalescing around a goal, making sure that that goal is realistic and attainable and time-bound, and then executing the plan to make it happen, that is the experience and the skill set that I bring to the team. I also think that it's very important to be pragmatic in understanding what the time commitment for serving in the assembly is going to look like. With a Democratic trifecta, we will have a lot more power and work to do on committees, in meetings, drafting and reviewing legislation, everything. And it will often be more than a full-time job. And that's why I'm prepared to quit my full-time job and serve in the Assembly as a full-time representative.
Thank you. So the next question, I think it's very interesting. We have a room full of people that fought very hard against gerrymandering for many years, and now we find ourselves in the weird place of being for gerrymandering for a short period of time. So we're going to talk about fair maps. So Amy, back to you on this one. Will you support a permanent independent redistricting commission to end gerrymandering?
Yes. Yes, fair maps was one of the first political issues that I got involved with in Wisconsin. As I started to get involved politically, I looked at what are some of the big problems, the big root causes behind all of these day-to-day disagreements that we have. And poor representation, meaning representation that does not reflect the constituency, is one of those biggest challenges to solve. When we have fairer maps, we have better elections. We have more competitive elections. As Kristen mentioned, it's very likely that whichever one of us two is the Democratic candidate on August 12th will win the November election. Frankly, this is maybe not a super competitive district, but overall, when we have more competitive districts, we get better candidates, we have fewer candidates who are prone to extremism, and we have more people, more of those candidates are more willing to talk with more people about your actual issues and represent those rather than their own personal pet projects. So yes, I would support a permanent independent redistricting commission. I think we also, now that we're getting fairer maps, need to look at other election reforms. Things like campaign finance reform. Things like, should we have open primaries? So the two of us and Mike Morgan could all be together in one category in August, and the top two would advance to November. I think those are the next targets that we should go after.
Excellent, thank you. David, same question. Will you support a permanent independent redistricting commission to end gerrymandering?
Yes, I absolutely would. So during my time clerking at the state Supreme Court was when the major redistricting battle took place. And in 2023, the court struck down what at that point was considered the most gerrymandered state legislative maps in the country. And I had a front row seat to it, to the court's reasoning, to how the court, addressed it. And I couldn't have been more proud to have clerked for a justice who led the charge on leading that case. It showed me the importance of true representation and the kind of corrosiveness of considering partisanship when you're drawing political maps. We should absolutely have an independent redistricting commission. There should be a group of nonpartisan actors, oftentimes data scientists. Other states do this and have done this. And they should consider things like compactness and keeping communities together, contiguity of districts, the core things that the court considered, the factors that the court considered when it evaluated the maps when I was there. When you do that, I agree with Amy, when you accomplish that, that means that you get more competitive races. It means that you get a legislature that is not running to the far left or to the far right, that you get people who have to, because their seat depends on it, run for people and talk to people and listen to people. And so 100% support. This is absolutely something we need to accomplish before the 2030 census, which would be the trigger for the next round of redrawing the maps. And I would be a plan to be a leader on establishing the Independent Redistricting Commission.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so right back to you on this one, David.
Yeah.
So this is on the state surplus. Everybody's been reading what's been going on with what has been attempted in Madison on the surplus. This is a multiple choice question. So Wisconsin has a multi-billion-dollar surplus. How do you think it should be spent? A, the economy is slowing down, so we need to be careful and not spend it right now. B, we need to refund it back to the taxpayers in an equitable way, or C, we should spend it on public schools, or I'll even throw in a D, question mark.
If this is one of those questions where you can select multiple, I'd like to do that. So something like B, C, and D, I think. Here's the thing. We are dealing with an affordability crisis right now. People are struggling to make ends meet right now. So we need to, address those things right now. It's ways to make childcare and healthcare more affordable. It's immediate investment in our K through 12 education. That will help bring down our property taxes. But I think we also need to think about the surplus, this kind of one-time, potential use, to stand up programs and policies that will set Wisconsin up and set Wisconsin apart for decades to come. So things that might include would be, passing a paid family and medical leave program. If you're, somebody who's moving back to the Midwest and you're looking at Wisconsin, you're a young family or a potential young family looking at Wisconsin and Minnesota, that might be a factor that leads you over to Minnesota. I think we also need to address our housing crisis in innovative ways that support, increasing the supply. One of my friends here in Wauwatosa is adding an accessory dwelling unit, the granny flat above the garage. It currently has one, but it hasn't been lived in 40 years. It's not up to code. And so the city of Wauwatosa is actually providing him a grant in order to kind of bring that unit back online. That's one of the cheapest ways you could add a unit in the city of Wauwatosa right now. Another one that I would support would be grants to nursing educators to kind of train the next generation of nurses. We are facing, it's one of our long-term issues that we're facing, is the shortage of nurses that we're going to have in about 15 years as their population continues to age and we require more people in that field. So we need to be thinking about using the surplus to address major issues right now, but also standing up these programs and policies to be a beacon and a magnet for businesses and our population, people coming to move to the state. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy, same question. This is a multiple choice question. So Wisconsin has a multi-billion-dollar surplus. How do you think it should be spent? A, the economy is slowing down, so we need to be careful and not spend it now. B, we need to refund it back to the taxpayers in an equitable way. Or C, we should spend it on public schools. Or D.
Thank you. So I think it's a combination here as well. I think also that any investment into our public schools is going to directly affect your property taxes next year and in the 5 to 10 years to come. So when we think about affordability, what I've heard from a lot of people within our district is that it's not so much maybe the grocery bill. It's gotten really high and that's frustrating. But what's really frustrating is how our property tax bills continue to increase. So in Elmbrook, we're looking at renewing our public school referendum so that we can take on some new projects. And that includes making our middle school ADA accessible and compliant. Right now, it's not. There's multiple classrooms that students who use mobility aids cannot get to, or they have to traverse a gymnasium while gym classes are taking place in order to get to their classrooms. So I think investing that into some ADA compliance updates across the state is past due. And my viewpoint on the surplus is that it's not so much free money as it's the scrounging that our Republican legislators did for the last 15 years that netted a surplus in the end. While the recent proposal put forward to do some investment into our public schools and some investment into other schools, and to do a tax rebate to some individuals was wildly popular statewide, I think it was correct that it got shot down in the legislature because the details of that mattered. And those details showed that it wouldn't have made the palpable difference that people need in their lives today. Reinvesting those funds into our communities buys significantly more runway for us.
Excellent, thank you. So Amy, coming right back to you with the next question on gun violence. The number one cause of children's deaths in America is the epidemic of gun violence. What kind of common sense gun reform would you fight for?
Yeah. Thank you. Gun violence is such a challenging topic. It's very emotionally charged. For me, it immediately takes me back to the first email that I got from my kids' school saying that they were going to be having an active shooter drill. And this was for my now 7-year-old when he was in 4K. So the email outlined, we're going to be doing this drill, here are the parameters, here's the date and time. And by the way, your child is going to be instructed to sit still and stay quiet for the entire duration of this. And if you've been around a 4-year-old, you probably know how difficult it is for them to sit still and stay quiet. And in that moment, I was so very thankful that it was a drill, and also so fearful for the day when it wouldn't be a drill. And we have seen so many of those incidences over time. It is atrocious. This is avoidable and preventable. The common sense gun reforms that I would support include mandatory background checks, red flag laws to take guns out of the hands of individuals at risk as identified by their friends, family, and other loved ones, as well as the restriction of assault rifles, bump stocks, and other add-on accessories that magnify the lethality of normal weapons. I believe that we also need stricter laws mandating safe storage, and we need a social program to break the stigma of talking about safe storage among your peers. It's something that I do when my kids have a new friend over for a play date, is I tell them about the .22 caliber squirrel guns that we do own and that we use for target shooting, and how safely they are stored.
Thank you. David, same question. The number one cause of children's deaths in America is the epidemic of gun violence. What kind of common sense gun reform would you fight for?
Yeah, I've gotten this email as well. I think the fact that our children have to go through active shooter training is a sign that we're failing our kids. I think that when it comes to common sense gun reform, we need to change the message and the messenger. So what do I mean by that? On the message, I think we need to hone in on a couple of the common sense gun reform issues that have over 80% support across Democrats, Independents, and Republicans in order to accomplish, get some progress going. So those are universal background checks, the red flag laws that Amy described, their banning of bump stocks, and they are the adding a 24-hour cooling off period when you're about to buy a gun. I think that focusing on these four will prevent the narrative from slipping away and becoming the government or the Democrats are coming for your guns. We need to change the messenger too. I grew up around guns. I was in the Scouts. I learned how to handle and to respect guns for the weapons that they are. And I have family that hunt. And so I feel very equipped to have a conversation sitting at a table with a group of Republicans or gun advocates, and to have that be a very authentic conversation about how we can balance their Second Amendment rights with protecting our kids and our communities, because the fact that that's the statistic is unacceptable. So I think we need to hone in our message on the things that will really make a difference and ensure that the messengers are also able to deliver that message authentically.
Excellent, thank you. David, this one's going back to you. This is our last question of the prepared questions, and then Kristen will bring up a couple of your questions from the audience. So, last question on the environment. How will you ensure the safety of drinking water and clean air?
Yeah. It's the only environment we got, folks. We gotta keep it. We gotta protect it. And unfortunately, there is so much going into affecting our water and our air. And I'd add land into that as well. On air. So, I'm a renewable energy attorney. One of the biggest air pollutants are our current sources of energy, natural gas-fired and coal-fired power plants. I think we need to make big and smart investments into the clean energy transition away from those sources of energy towards cleaner sources like wind and solar. On the water, I think that the issue that we've had with PFAS and now with data centers, affecting the water table, other types of contaminants, is that we're not doing regular enough testing, and that companies that are causing the pollutants to be in our water table are bankrupt and gone down the road by the time that we find those out. So we need to be doing regular testing and ensure that, as I talked about data centers earlier, that these kinds of companies, if there's a chance that they're going to affect our water resources, that they are on the hook, both legally speaking, and that they've put up collateral in order to remediate quickly the kinds of things that are going on. The other thing I'll just point out is on land. I mentioned land. Next week, a bipartisan program called the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Conservation Program is set to expire because our legislature couldn't get behind it and couldn't figure out a way to continue it. This is a program that has preserved over 750,000 acres of land in the state of Wisconsin. It's why we have great parks and great natural resources all over the state, and it's not only great for our environment, but great for our economy. That's also a top priority in the next legislative session, is to restore funding to the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Program.
Thank you. Amy, same question. How will you ensure the safety of drinking water and clean air?
Yeah, thank you. It is very much about our energy. And to paraphrase from somebody I respect greatly, an organizer with Citizen Action, the cheapest and most available kilowatt is the one that we do not have to use. So we need to make big investments and improvements in our energy efficiency. My mom also grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, coal country. I have a small necklace with like a lump of coal on it. And I've seen what changing a community's energy balance without planning for the people looks like. Her town is a ghost town where she grew up, and it's gone through many cycles of attempted renewal. But when the jobs leave a community, we need to plan for what those people who are still living there are going to do and how they're going to afford their life. So I do support many of the same programs and initiatives that David just mentioned. I would add into there as well the integrated resource plan that's been put forward by Citizen Action Wisconsin to ensure that we have a long-term strategic approach to where we are getting our energy from and how it can be distributed effectively across Wisconsin. I'd also mention the Climate Accountability Act, which does include specific measures for monitoring and treatment when there is environmental contamination. And then I'd also bring up this topic of wakeboarding. So wakeboarding is a newer topic to me, and how some of these sport boats are generating these massive wakes so that you can get bigger air out on the lake. And in doing so, they are ravaging these lake bottoms. They're stirring up contaminants, they're displacing the natural fauna there, and they're causing significant issues. So that's an industry that's booming right now that we need to get ahead of, or rapidly catch up to rather, and start regulating more aggressively as well.
Excellent, thank you. I think we should stop calling it green energy or clean energy, and we should just call it what it is, energy.
Yeah.
So,
See if we can use it.
sure I can. All right, so Amy, back to you on this one. This is criminal justice is the topic. Wisconsin's extended supervision program and criminal justice system need work. What does justice in Wisconsin look like to you?
Thank you. So our extended supervision program is dramatically different from all of our neighboring states. And what it results in is a much more fragile and tenuous opportunity that recently released individuals who were formerly incarcerated have. They're at a much higher rate of returning because of our sensitivity to this. And that means that if they've been released, they've served their time, and there's a paperwork error, or they get a parking ticket, they can be re-incarcerated due to that offense. Criminal justice is about ensuring public safety and rehabilitating individuals who most often made horrible decisions in horrible circumstances. I think most of us here today have benefited from a strong background. We were given opportunities outside of our own control or earning that led us to be here today. Overly punitive criminal justice fails to acknowledge those different circumstances that each of us comes from. In my opinion, true justice understands those differences and gives individuals a second chance to do the right thing with supports and with a realistic opportunity for success.
Excellent, thank you. David, same question. Wisconsin's extended supervision program and criminal justice system need work. What does justice in Wisconsin look like to you?
I agree with Amy that the extended supervision program needs revising. I don't think that people who have served their time and who are out back in our society should be sent back into prison for a clerical error or a small mistake. This is near and dear to me. When I lived out in California, I did extensive volunteering with a company or an organization called Defy Ventures. Defy would go into the California prison system and work with people facing incarceration. They were called EITs, Entrepreneurs in Training. And the whole idea was to transform your hustle, right? So the things that often landed them in prison, to transform that and to teach them the business skills that would allow them to become entrepreneurs once they got back integrated into society. They would literally bring in venture capitalists who would give money and seed funding to these ideas that these guys had. And I got to spend many weeks in prison, getting to know these people and helping them develop their ideas. That's the recidivism rate for EIT graduates of that program was something like 4%. The recidivism rate normally is something in like the 80s and 90s. So I think one of the ways that justice looks to me is making the investments, the smart investments that will prevent people from going back into the system in the first place. I think this is one of those areas where $1 in prevention saves tenfold on the return. I think that also extends not just to people who are incarcerated, but diversion programs for people before they go down that path, before they get incarcerated. We need to make sure that we're investing, and this is something where we need to identify and use data to identify the neighborhoods and the people who need these funds the most in order to be diverted from a life and a pathway that might land them in prison in order to ensure that they remain out and remain active members of our community.
Thank you. All right, last question of the evening, back to you, David, on this one.
Yeah.
There is a crisis of affordable housing across the state and country. What innovative and creative ideas would you suggest to create more housing?
Yeah, so this is some of the work that I do in my role as an attorney is on affordable housing. And so this is something that is something I deal with most days of the week. We have an affordability crisis when it comes to housing. I was just talking earlier today with the Wisconsin Realtors Association about the need. I think it was the data point was 130,000 units by 2030 in order to stave off the critical housing shortage that we are facing. When I think about it in terms of push-pull policies. So push policies are policies that push things out of the way, that clear the barriers to the kinds of development we're talking about. And look, we're not talking about Valley Vista down the road. That's not affordable housing. That's like $4,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. We're talking about the places that teachers and first responders, and nurses that they can afford to live. places that have the affordable, that have the average income be in kind of the 30 to 80% range of AMI. So push policies are those that get things out of the way. That's a reform to our zoning code that allow for more natural density. That is programs like LIHTC, which is the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. I deal with this quite a bit. What LIHTC allows is for the capital stack, or the funding that goes into these affordable housing developments, to be more realistic. It's not oftentimes realistic to build a multi-million-dollar apartment building for affordable units if that money is not going to be there on the back end. And so what LIHTC does is it allows tax credits to be used in order to make that funding make sense and the math add up. The pull policies are those that I talked about a little bit earlier. A friend of mine here in Wauwatosa who is investing in turning an ADU, an old ADU or accessory dwelling unit, granny flat above the garage, into a unit, into a housing unit in Wauwatosa. That's a grant coming from the city of Wauwatosa. And those kinds of grants actually incentivize or pull forward the development that we're talking about in order to address that crisis.
Thank you. Amy, same question. There is a crisis of affordable housing across the state and country. What innovative and creative ideas would you suggest to create more housing?
Thank you. So this has been an interesting issue in my hometown here of Brookfield, and I know it's been an issue in Elm Grove and Wauwatosa as well. A lot of our municipalities have been backed into this corner with their funding mechanisms and structure, where they feel pressured that they have to allow large-scale housing developments that a lot of residents don't like and don't want. Ultimately, we do need more affordable housing, and we do need more housing units. Some of the creative projects that Brookfield almost had come to fruition include having like a courtyard of multiple smaller homes. And we do need to use grant funding at the state level to make those worthwhile for builders. Unfortunately, what we're seeing right now is a lot of profit chasing by developers and builders, as well as investors who turn homes into rental properties, be it for short-term or long-term. I believe that we need to look at this more holistically and understand that in order to have vibrant communities, we want more of our teachers, police officers, bank tellers to live in our communities. Apartments may be one of those mechanisms that we utilize. But when we talk about affordable housing and apartments, and that conversation devolves into low-income housing and degrading the individuals who would otherwise live there, I think we have a major problem. So to me, this is not just a policy problem. This is a community and a people problem, and something that we need to spend a lot more time discussing as a community to ensure that we can come up with the right mix of new housing units, of affordable and workforce housing that will seamlessly fit in to our current community's culture and personality.
Excellent, thank you. Let's give both candidates a my sense of optimism about democracy is renewed, because we actually heard about the issues and we heard solutions to the issues, so thank you very much. The candidates will be around for another half hour to answer any more in-depth questions or anything else you need, but let's give you one more round of applause.
Nice work. That's fun.
I'm going to ask you guys one more fun question.
Ooh.
But first I want to say, as I said, if you have already asked for a ballot to be mailed to you, that's going to be coming any day now. Early in-person voting starts July 28th. The election is August 11th. I would encourage you to wait a little bit because there might be more governor candidates dropping out before we actually get there. So you don't want to vote for someone who's not actually running anymore. We lost Mrs. Hughes this year, or this week dropped out, and so that kind of thing is going to start happening. So certainly by July 23rd, voting starts, we'll know what we're doing. But you can always go to myvote.wi.gov to find out what's going on, to order mail ballot, all that good stuff, or to our website, Sky Waukesha County. So looking at the front row where no one's sitting except Kevin, my question is, in school,
Oh,
were you a front row person or a back row person, and why?
I'll take this.
yeah, go for it.
Front of the class, back of the bus.
I'm very much a front row person still to this day, although you may catch me doing a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle, as many of my college professors did.
Thank you guys very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic
Hey,
job.
Thank you for all you did.
That was fun.
That
I get
was.
sixth grade answers. So.
Oh, good. Yay.
I really like that we were able to play off each other too. It's like,